All right, so Gary the Prophet, Mr. Blue Eyes, and Jefferson Peralez. What do they all have in common? That's right, you guessed it. They all are wearing the same ring. One is a bum who is shouting conspiracy theories. Another is a mayor candidate. And the last one looks like an Illuminati henchman. And on top of all of this, we now have invisible AVs. What is happening right now? Today we talk some cyberpunk lore. If you have not yet subscribed, consider subscribing for more. So there have been an immense amount of lore and theories and ideas about the upcoming DLC surrounding Mr. Blue Eyes. People are thinking that he could be Morgan Blackhand. People are suspecting that there is a bigger picture, which I agree with, that we are not seeing in the main plot in Cyberpunk 2077. The actions carried out by Mr. Blue Eyes, the conspiracy theories that Gary the Prophet talks about, seem to be talking about a plot that is yet to be really fleshed out, which is really exciting for us because maybe, just maybe, we're gonna get ourselves a good game. Before we can actually talk conspiracy theories, I thought it was a really good idea to talk about Mr. Blue Eyes, Jefferson Peralez, and Gary the Prophet in a little bit more detail so we understand what are actual facts and what we can base my theory from so that you guys can see where I am coming from. Of course, I'm open to any comments, any suggestions. If there are holes in my theories, I'm more than willing to talk and communicate with people because this is the stuff I like to do, especially once the game is kind of like everyone's already finished the game. I like talking lore, seeing what is next. So let's get started. First, we're going to talk about Mr. Blue Eyes, and then we're going to move into Jefferson Peralez. So let's get started. Mr. Blue Eyes is part of one of the endings in the game. With this ending, it seems you are doing one last mission for your client, who happens to be the man himself. We don't know the deets, but it looks like you're attacking the Crystal Palace, the space station in Earth's orbit. For a while, that was all we got, until he was spotted in the mission Dream On. In this mission, the Peralez couple call V to investigate a break-in. Here we find that the couple is being spied on by the security company they hired, which is SSI. Upon further investigation, we actually find out that the couple is being brainwashed. Most people assume that Mr. Blue Eyes is the one behind all of this, because why else would he just be standing there watching us talk with Jefferson? That's right, he's creeping. Now some people may be asking, how did he know where we would be talking? Well, this just further proves the point that he is behind the brainwashing. Elizabeth is actually the one who planned this meeting between V and Jefferson, so it can be inferred that she was being used somehow by the agents to stage this meeting.
I'll add a meeting in Reconciliation Park to Jeff's schedule. He'll be waiting. Since I can't know if I'll remember this conversation tomorrow, I'm counting on you not to forget what I asked of you.
Therefore, Mr. Blue Eyes would know where to go. This is pretty much where the story ends, however. Once you tell Jefferson what you know, the mission is completed. But during the mission, there are small details and references, especially to the color blue, a nod to Mr. Blue Eyes himself. For instance, if you open up the computers in the secret room, there are a lot of emails being sent back and forth between people named Field Agent Blue 87G and Field Agent Blue 03A. There are also other colors in terms of like agent levels, but it is interesting to take note that the color blue and black are considered to be the highest. Then we got Elizabeth herself saying weird things, like this one.
So we ordered a whole truckload.
Blue roses. You sure? Roses in this picture look pretty red to me.
Oh, of course, you're right. They didn't have blue roses, I forgot.
Elizabeth talks about making sure the color of the flowers in her wedding were blue. But, as we can clearly see, it is red in the picture. And from there, it is clear she's tripping because of the brainwashing. So alright, we get it. Mr. Blue Eyes is behind this mess. This brings up a few questions, like, is he the boss? Does he work for the corpse? If so, is it Arasaka or Militech or one of the other smaller companies? we will leave these questions for now and move on to Garry the Prophet. Oh, and at the very end of the van chase, if you follow these agents who are actually trying to escape, you can kill them. But the coolest thing is that they escape, or that they are trying to escape via an invisible AV. Obviously, some conspiracy stuff going on here. Okay, I'll leave that. You guys put your comments what you think that is. But now let's talk about Garry. He can be found close to Vic's shop. Now, I don't think everything he says is accurate. Clearly, his brain is fried, but it's one of those cases where, yeah, he's gone crazy, but not completely wrong. For instance, if you complete his quest, you actually find out that there is a meeting with the Techno Necromancers, or the Maelstrom gang, with some corpo suits. Even though when you complete this mission, you don't find out anything more, it is enough to suggest that not everything Garry said was made up. When you first walk by him, he begins his speech by saying, "But you are not the masters of your memories, or your eyes do not belong to you, or rather, not only to you." At first, when we encounter him, we think he's crazy. Well, at least I did. But after seeing what happened to the Perales couple, he doesn't seem so wrong. That line talking about the fact that we are not the master of our own memories was very, very catchy. Both Jefferson and Elizabeth are having severe memory issues. As we stated earlier, Elizabeth thinks there are blue flowers in her wedding photo when it's clearly red. And Jefferson forgot he even has a younger brother. So it's obvious that they are not the masters of their own memories, and that Garry is right on the money with this point. He continues to be onto something when he responds to V by saying, "And if you are their pawn, unknowingly carrying out their secret agenda." I think this is a nod to the fact that Elizabeth may have set up that meeting thinking that it was part of like Elizabeth and Jefferson's plan, but really it was more so the agenda of those who were controlling her. Again, this just suggests that Garry knows that these secret people are somehow controlling others. The Perales couple are the best example of this. When V reveals what he or she found out, both Jefferson and Elizabeth start to question whether the decisions they've been making were really their own decisions and not the schemes or plots of the ones controlling them. Okay, so Garry is definitely onto something here. When you complete his quest and return to him, he has been kidnapped, unfortunately, and we are left without any answers. When you ask the bum where they took him, she just says he was carried off in an AV into the mothership. I'm just gonna say that I'm pretty sure this AV was invisible, cause who would believe a bum if they were to say an invisible AV, right? Anyways, if we dig deeper, we can solve a few things about what Garry has said in the span of all the times he's yelling stuff. Garry referred to the blue-eyed people as reptilians. The vampires are Arasakas, and the werewolves at first were, I thought, the nomads, but with more digging, we can infer that the werewolves are the ones being controlled by some mysterious technology. Garry actually says this.
"But what will you do when the pack hunts you down? And the cause behind these monstrous horrors? Years ago, a ship from Alpha Centauri crash-landed in the Badlands. Legend tells that it carried a substance highly sought after by the vampire elite in Arasaka. It could transform Saburo's enemies into werewolves, leashed and bound to his will. But the crash... You got a problem with Nomad?
And then he gets cut off by angry nomads from the Aldecaldos. But you get the gist of it. He's not totally wrong. So then who is Alpha Centauri? And how is this all connected? Alright, so now that I've delved a little bit deeper into Garry, into Jefferson, and Mr. Blue Eyes himself, let's talk about my theory and what I think is going on here. The players involved are the corps. We have Arasaka and Militech, namely. Arasaka's because they are the vampires in Garry's speeches. And Militech because of the tech used to spy on the Perales was actually Militech gear that Johnny noticed was used in the early 2020 war. Garry, Jefferson, and Mr. Blue Eyes all wear the same ring. We know that, albeit different colors. Garry and Jefferson seem to have more of a silverish kind of ring, and Mr. Blue Eyes has a golden one, maybe kind of showing that he's in charge. I'm not sure. All of them have the letters JG inscribed on them. If anyone knows the significance of this, I am all ears. Leave it in the comments below. As for my theory, it is this. This whole conspiracy revolves around the shard we collect at Konpeki Plaza. But first, we have to understand Saburo, because he's a character that I think a lot of people misunderstood. He is a guy who wants to take over the world, which is like lame. He wants to do this via Mikoshi and Soul Killer. With Soul Killer, Arasaka can make you someone that you are not and then trap you in Mikoshi. So they can kind of change you and make you a completely different person. Kind of like what Garry said about this mysterious tech that can make people into Arasaka's werewolves. So they are leashed and bound to his will. I believe the legend about Saburo wanting this mysterious substance is true, but not because he needs it, but because he doesn't want anyone else to have the same power or tech that he has. This also leads me to believe that Alpha Centauri is somehow related to Militech, because in the shard, Saburo states he knows what Militech is hiding in the depths. Now, nothing else is said about this. All we know is that Saburo is aware of what Militech has. This, to me, ties into what Garry said about Saburo's plot being thwarted because of the crash. Maybe the substance in the crash was Militech gear, and now it lies in the depths. That's where my thinking is. The mysterious substance itself is a Militech weapon like Mikoshi or Soul Killer that can be used to brainwash people on a larger scale, like what we are seeing with the Paralysis couple. And all this is a race to which company can be first to create tech that can control people's mind. Saburo has Mikoshi and Soul Killer and the Relic programs, and as for Militech and Mr. Blue Eyes team, they got this blue neural link that can brainwash people on the fly. All in all, I think it ties in kind of nice with the story, because we know that Saburo is a crazy old man and that he wants absolute control. And you have other corporal giants like Militech who are trying to grapple power away from Arasaka. Other small details that make me believe that this is all a corpo conspiracy is how Johnny talks about it. At the end of Garry's quest, you and Johnny talk. No matter what you say, he talks about how people romanticize the truth and spin it in different ways. He's referring to the fact that Garry was naming reptilians, vampires, and werewolves, but the truth is it's companies like Militech and Arasaka. So it seems that we understand that there is this underlying like story behind everything that is going on, that we are kind of like our character, like just like how any conspiracy theory is that we are being distracted by, I don't know, video games, by movies, by this, by that, and everything is being controlled by a higher power that knows it's doing this to us. So I think that's the kind of theme, that's the kind of story we're leaning towards, especially because, again, like the way Johnny, the way V talks about it, it's very sort of like we are being controlled and we just don't know it yet. And yeah, that is like my theory, is that it's just a power struggle between these two companies trying to brainwash the population. And honestly, that is all I got when it comes to this. Like, I've read shards, I've replayed the mission so I can see if I can find any detail. If you guys have any sort of comments, if there's anything you want to add to this, of course, leave it down below so we can talk about this, because I'm really curious. I really want to know what everyone else thinks about what I had to say, and if there is something that you guys can add, that'd be great, so we can build on something to figure out what's actually going on. And that is going to be it for me in this video. Please leave a thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, of course, consider subscribing for more. Bye.